Hi Bookworms, so today I'm just going to do a review on a book called Castaway for These Reasons, Economic Jihad by Joe M. Sekimonyu. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I apologise if I am mispronouncing that, but yes. So this book, general preface, is essentially the author is presenting a new economic system to, I guess, for the betterment of people. It's a better socio-politico economic system that is meant to sort of benefit people instead of the current capitalistic system which benefits the 1%, and that there are plenty of starving people in the world, and essentially a new system which provides what capitalism promised us, which is essentially that everyone has equal opportunity and that if you work hard, you can build a life for yourself, which is more and more, especially in this climate and these times right now, is proving, something that is definitely not delivering on, for sure. So, on that note, I should probably, disclaimer, point out I am not a fan of capitalism. So, if anyone reads this, just remember that it is not from a perspective of a capitalist fan, and this review is not going to be from the perspective of someone who's a fan of capitalism. So just disclaimer, warning, that's how it is. Now, having said that, I am the closest label I can find for how I believe the economy should work and my economic opinions is kind of the closest label I can think of that's a commonly well-known label is social democrat, but I disagree to a point about a lot of things, well, not a lot, but some of the things in social democracy, but I'm not here to discuss that today. So I started this book, and it was definitely engaging. It was talking about things that I agree with about how capitalism has failed the little guy, essentially. It promised so much for us, that if we worked hard and even for those of us who are entrepreneurs who've built businesses, it was this promise that, we could build this thing and if we worked hard and we could find it, and as long as we had the right mental attitude and everything, we could make it, and we could, live comfortably and have what we want. But it's definitely, it's failed those of us who aren't the 1%. Let's be fair. So, the book really excited me at the start because it was very much about the things I believe in and what I'm really passionate about. And that was great. There was only a couple of things that I was a little bit skeptical about. There was a line in the book that said something about this isn't going to have lots of fancy graphs and numbers in it, because a lot of economists like that. And it said something along the lines of, you don't need graphs for facts we all know. And that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, because that's a line that I've heard from a lot of people when discussing capitalism and socialism, etc., as an excuse for not backing up sources, etc. So that's kind of important, and I felt a little bit skeptical when I heard that, but I thought, you know what, maybe they're just pretty much don't want to have to keep justifying themselves all the time, which I've noticed I have to do as a socialist, like constantly justifying how capitalism has failed us, and I can understand that. So I kind of let that slide. The second thing that made me a little bit skeptical was there was one line in the book that said, it was talking about South America's supply of soy to China and Asia, and I think the exact line was something like, they were too worried about the Chinese yens to worry about their own people, something along those lines. And that struck me because I am Japanese, and yen is the Japanese currency. Yuan is the Chinese currency. Now, I'm not blaming anybody for not knowing that. If you didn't know that, that's fine, but I think as a writer of a book on economics, it's a good idea to research that kind of thing, and I honestly didn't know the difference between the Chinese and Japanese currency. Like, it's the same. I knew it wasn't yen, but actually know the name of it until a few years ago, when my family travelled there and we were talking about the exchange rates and stuff, and that's when I found out it was actually pronounced yuan, and it was actually yuan as opposed to just the same Y symbol as the yen. But it isn't actually yen. And I can understand how some people get confused because the dollar sign is used in several different countries and it's still a dollar, but in the case of yen and yuan, it's actually different. So that was something that tweaked a little at me, that I was like, oh, how is this going to go? Overall, I would have to say it is a great critique of capitalism. Fantastic critique of capitalism, as the author has actually gone around to different places and seen how badly and exactly where capitalism has failed us. And I think that's, in that sense, it's fantastic. And the core message at the end kind of resonated with me, but I'll explain a little bit later what that is and how that resonates with me personally, and why I think that particular idea is good, etc. Now, the only really probably thing that I noticed was it spent a lot of time critiquing capitalism, which isn't an issue if you don't know much about the capitalist or anti-capitalist debate or I guess the whole political thing with it, and you haven't really fully understood how capitalism has actually horrendously failed people and failed to deliver what it's promised. And in that sense, and as well, economy in academic economy. Economics in academia. There we go. So how there's certain things in there, and it's really interesting, and that was actually fascinating for me. I just felt like, as someone who already knew a lot of this, it was a lot of hearing a lot of what I already know. So for me, I felt like that took a little while to get through. There was a lot of the book that was critiquing capitalism, and that was something I already knew. A lot of that I already knew. It was just reiterating things. The thing that I noticed as well was sometimes the author would bring up a point. So specifically about how Mandela was partly responsible for the current economic situation in South Africa. And first I thought, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? And continued reading it. And I understand why that's there. That's perfectly fine. But I felt like it took a little bit too long to get to the point, which was that he then negotiated with the 1%, which gave the 1% an advantage, which they then used to oppress people further. And I get that, but could have been said quicker. I felt like I was reading a lot, and I was like, I don't understand Mandela's involvement. I don't understand. Yeah, that's his life. I get what's going on. I get that thing. Oh, okay, he negotiated with people he shouldn't have, and I felt like that took a little bit too long. And there are a few times where I felt like that, where I kind of got wrapped up in this whole explanation about stuff, and I almost occasionally forgot what the original hook point was. So I felt like it was a little bit slow, but otherwise really good. I found something really, really interesting and a few lines and really key chunks of it that were amazing. So in the start, the author mentions their wife was said that or justified or explained why billionaires donate millions of dollars to charities, and she said it was guilt. And he said he didn't think so because otherwise they'd give away everything they had except what they needed to survive. And there's one line, I even wrote it down, so I've got it on paper. There's one line that explained that, or his theory behind that. And oh my god, I resonated with this so much. So the line was, or is it the characteristic of some people who feel the need of grasping the bigger piece of the pie, play God and dictate what causes needs to be championed and who needs to be saved? Now, that's really blunt, but let's put it this way. I have money, like not heaps of money, but I have enough money that I can occasionally donate. And when I stop and think about what charities I want to donate for, I ain't gonna lie, I think certain causes are more important than others. Like, I'll sit here and I go, okay, food wastage is super important. I think that's a huge one. That needs money donated to it. Oh my god, abused animals, that's a cause I need to champion money for. Cancer research, yeah, suppose that's important too. Yeah, actually, no, that is important. I'll put money towards that. So, do you know what I mean? Like, there are levels in my mind where some things I'll be like, yes, 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 and other things I'll go, yeah, I suppose that is kind of important. Those people need that. whatever need that. Oh, environmental thing. Yeah, okay, that's the survival of our entire planet. That's more important. Like, in my mind, that's more important. Other people would put the cancer before the entire planet. Other people would put, and I'm not going to say that I'm a saint by saying this. By any means, I have biases. I am definitely more likely to save the planet and donate to charities that are actively trying to save the entire planet, than I am a specific group. And it's not anything like that. And it's also religious groups. Now, this is just me personally, but I don't feel like charities that are specifically religious I feel really uncomfortable in those situations, because I don't know how the religion is going to affect the charity and who they're helping. So that's my personal thing. And again, that's me and my own personal experience and my own personal biases. So it's not necessarily like a playing God and trying to be, have a bigger bite of the pie, but let's be fair, we all have biases. And I think that this is also important, and this is an attitude that a lot of us have, and I see this mentality when debating very capitalist or socialist ideals, and it's very much in the mentality of my tax dollars. So when people talk about welfare or healthcare and things, and they go, I don't want my tax dollars going towards that, that's the exact same mentality. It is. It's essentially people going, well, I've given this money, and in my mind, that's like a donation. And I think that it shouldn't be going towards this or shouldn't be going towards that. Well, really it is. It's taxes that the government then decides to do with as it will, which is a completely different thing, whether you agree with how they're spending it or not. But that's a mentality. And I'm realizing that we all actually have it. Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't have biases towards any one cause or any one thing. Because of how we've experienced things. Some people may have lost a family member to cancer. I definitely felt like, cancer was a high-ranking one for me personally. I mean, environment is definitely really up there, because I feel like the entire species and entire planet, like our species and other species as well, like that hangs in the balance too. But also cancer is really important because I personally know people who've suffered from cancer. But then other people who might be more inclined to donate to mental health services or mentally handicapped services, for example, Minda or SCOSA, etc., because they know someone who's got a mental handicap. Like, it's personal bias. And I think while the author was being blunt, I completely, gem, jewel, oh my god, epiphany, mind blown, that's really why we do anything. So, okay, coming to wrapping up to the end and the point to the whole book. What I understood, and maybe I misunderstood how this new system, which I think is called ethosism, I may be pronouncing that wrong again, but forgive me if I am. What I understood with that was a very complicated version of profit share. Now, I'm just going to point this out, and that might sound really strange and really weird, but it's essentially that employees own a certain percentage of the company and get a certain percentage of the profits, which makes them work harder, but also gives them a fairer chance and a fairer go within the company, and fairer wages. The better the company does, the better they get paid, instead of the better company does, you're still stuck on the same minimum wage, which is a good and interesting system. I just feel like the only reason I'm fully understanding this, and I wrote notes, I took notes, which is partly why I have the paper. So, while I agree that it's a good system, the only reason I think I actually agree with that is because I am part of an organisation that uses a similar economic system. And the only reason I understand that economic system is because I've had the finance guy and my boss explaining it to me over and over and over again, different ways, so that I could fully understand it. I'm definitely not an economist, so I don't understand the nuances of how it actually works. So I've had to have that explained to me several times over the last few months since I started a while ago actually. But it's taken a while for me to understand that, because it's actually a very, very complicated system. And I don't know if the author is using a similar system to what my work does, but it's a complicated system. It's a really, really complicated system. And I feel like, I don't know whether because it's such a complicated system, I felt like it didn't translate as well as it probably could have through the book as to how it works and how it would benefit society. But I felt like if I didn't know and I wasn't part of my work, I may have looked at that and gone, that's not going to work. Because I have worked for other companies under profit share, and it has gone horrendously. And I don't know if that was because of the entire situation or because there were issues with the organisation or anything like that, but I had issues. And so if I hadn't joined the organisation that I did 12 to 6 months ago, 6 to 12 months ago, I'm not 100% sure exactly when that I joined, I probably wouldn't understand this, because in that time I've had my boss and my finance guy explain the whole system to me, and it is really complicated, and I don't know whether it's because of that complexity that it didn't come across so well in the book, but I also feel like it spent a lot of time critiquing capitalism that it could have spent explaining how the system works. Having said that, it is very complicated. I have had to ask many questions. It has taken a long time and a fair few meetings with the finance department to fully understand how it is when other people have asked me questions, since I work in the HR. So sometimes I get questions from potential candidates. And, you know, it gets a little bit difficult to explain when I don't have a finance background. So on that note, great idea. Could do with a bit more expanding. Again, it's complicated, and so I'm not going to you know, blame anyone in any way at all. I just feel like it's such a complicated system and such an unknown system that it's a little bit difficult to get your head around, and I feel like I don't know whether the book did a great job of that or not, simply because if I didn't understand the system, I'm not sure I would have understood it when reading the book. And because I understand that system, I understand that it is a good thing and it is a great idea. It's just so complex. And the issue here is, I don't want anyone to think that that means that capitalism or communism or socialism or you know, social democracy is simple. It's not. It's very, very complicated. It's just been debated for so long that we've found simplified ways of explaining it. And I feel like ethosism, as the author calls it, is so new, it hasn't found its simplified way of describing it other than profit share, and I feel like that doesn't do it justice. So, yeah, it's definitely a great idea. It's definitely a great system, in my opinion. We'll have to see how it goes in effect, especially in my organisation, so that'll be really interesting and really fun to see how that goes. But I feel like as a book, there's a lot there that needs to be explained, I think, for the everyday person to understand. And I think, yeah, I think I understood that better because of where I work. And I think that was more of a luck thing than the explanation. But otherwise, amazing book, great idea, awesome awesome ideas, awesome everything. Like I resonated with a lot in there. Just, yeah, the pacing and probably that end bit being so complicated, and maybe because it's complex, it may not even be able to be described in a book adequately. With the critique, I mean, like, you know how there are books that are just about communism without particularly massively critiquing capitalism, and just like there's books about capitalism without massively critiquing communism. I feel like this system did, as this book, as an introduction to ethosism, an introduction to alternatives other than communism, socialism, and capitalism. It did a good job. I just think there's that huge bowl of how to describe this system, and I feel like you could spend a whole book describing that. So, don't begrudge anyone against the fact that that is a really big, daunting task, and I feel like the author did a good job, but definitely could have been a bit more, a bit better explained, I think. Yeah, that's my personal thing. But anyway, if you like this review, or you have any other reviews you'd like to send, any other books you would like me to review, send them my way. I'll also put a link in the description to the book if you'd like to purchase it on Amazon and read it, which is where I got it from, and stuck it on my Kindle. I'm getting all tech savvy now. These will be obsolete soon. No, they won't. Never. So if you liked it, yeah, give it a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or a heart if you're on Tumblr. I prefer this heart. Or reblog or share, whatever you feel is adequate. Yeah, and I will see you guys next time.